everyone, so today I'm bringing you another installment to my creative solution series. I have one other video currently in this little mini series. What this is it's not a formal tutorial. This isn't necessarily the conventional way to go about fixing this kind of repair. However, sometimes things don't go according to plan, something is wrong with your doll, you can't fix them in the traditional way. So this was kind of the evolution of how I fixed my Ballerina Cara doll. I'm going to insert my original footage that I filmed of how you should try to fix her if you have a doll that works similarly, but obviously I had to go about it in a different way. So this is kind of just the creative thought process of getting around a speed bump when it comes to doll repair. I hope you enjoy. I know that this probably won't work for you necessarily, but this could give you some ideas. I always try to think of a backup plan when I'm fixing dolls, so if fixing them the proper way doesn't work, what am I going to do? So here is Cara, here is her arm. I do want to say that I got this doll off of eBay when I was 12 years old. She was in a lot with the Barbie from her line, and the second I got her in the mail and I opened her up, both her arms fell off. These dolls are very prone to losing their arms. In fact, a lot of Barbies from the 70s are, because of their lower quality manufacturing. It just happens. So for many years she was completely armless, and I gave her a donor body that was more modern. But then I had a friend who fixed her up for me probably 7 years ago. I actually mailed her out and they fixed her and sent her back. And I'll show you some of the damage that happened from them cracking open her body. Now I think I'm going to be able to reattach everything without opening up her body. So this is going to be kind of an experiment. We'll see how this goes. I do want to say that there are a lot of different types of articulation when it comes to doll arms. The body mold, what kind of movement they have, this is all going to change how possible it is or isn't to fix a doll. A lot of people think that there's one kind of mechanism. There's not. There's tons of different ones. Even two dolls who have the same general body mold could look different on the inside. So you're not going to need much. It's very similar to when I tried to fix my Snow White doll. We have a little bowl for water, we have some glue and little pliers, obviously the doll, her torso. So I use super glue because it dries fast and it dries pretty strong, but a 2-part epoxy glue would be the strongest bond. I just find that when I try to work with it, it doesn't stick very well, and no matter how long I seem to hold it in place, it kind of just flops all over off where I'm trying to glue it to. So that's why I'm using super glue. You can see here that there's a lot of glue and stuff in her hand, in her arm socket already from the previous time she was fixed, and you can see that there's this little post in here where it broke off from. It's really important when you look at dolls to kind of see how they were originally put together, because that can give you an idea of how to fix them. So I'm going to heat this up in the microwave and come back. Now to do this most effectively, you're going to want to make sure that the water actually started boiling, because that is going to help soften up the plastic the easiest. You don't want to try just soaking it in warm water or kind of hot water, because it's not going to soften the plastic. And that's the key to doing a lot of doll repairs, even if it's something like a head swap or trying to get a joint out of a neck, making sure that the water is hot enough to soften up the plastic so it's pliable and can be worked with. And it does reform its shape. So I'm probably going to need a decently tiny screwdriver here.
So here I'm making sure the arm is almost a little bit bendy, but that's why I'm pushing it under the bottom of the bowl, and I'm going to try to get the little knob out, but as you can see, chunks of it are coming out instead of the whole piece, and that's just because of how old this is and probably from the fact that it was repaired before. So I realized that my plan wasn't going to work.
Okay, so I have resolved that I'm going to have to go about this in a different way, but I already had this plan in mind. I usually try to think of backup plans in case my initial one works. So ideally I would want to remove the peg from inside this arm, but I don't know if it's because it's so old or if it was the kind of glue that my friend used to fix her, if it was just some kind of reaction, but it was literally falling apart and crumbling, which has never happened to me before. Usually it'll come out in a hunk, so we're gonna have to fix her kind of like we did Toralei. So what I'm gonna do is I cut a paper clip down and I kind of made it pointy on the edge.
So the main issue I had doing this is that the little bar inside Cara kept wiggling around, so I needed to hold it in place with pliers in order to make the hole. It was kind of complicated figuring out what way to do this, whether to put the wire in the arm itself first or put it in the socket first, and it had to be super duper delicate with the post because it was skinny and I could kind of feel it starting to loosen a bit, not like loosen from the inside, but the actual plastic itself was so soft that I didn't want it to like crumble, basically like the piece that you saw earlier falling out of her arm. So it took a lot of poking and prodding, and I wanted to take my time, so I kept reheating and I kept trying to reposition, and that little bar kept moving around, but I did manage to figure it out. But I had to glue it in place and then leave it overnight, which you'll see in the next clip, to keep it attached to the arm because the wire just kept kind of falling out of either piece, so I needed glue there.
Okay, so I'm going to explain kind of what I did here. So I heated up this little piece of wire, and it helps if you're having trouble getting it to like stab into the plastic to use your wire cutters to make a point. And I stuck it in what was left of her arm. Now, I haven't touched this in 24 hours about, because I put some super glue around it because I noticed when I would try to like connect these two pieces that the wire would loosen from either side. So I glued it to keep it extra sturdy, and then I went and I made this, like, she has this little post inside her arm socket here, and I held it with my left hand using these needle nose pliers in place, and then I would heat up another piece of wire to prepare a hole. Now, it's going to be a little bit tricky. I'm going to have to trim this wire down because it's not going to go all the way through that post, and also, like, I don't want to obliterate this post because it's really old, and you can see, like, she has all of this damage from being cracked open before when my friend fixed her, so she's pretty delicate. So I'm going to trim this down like a little bit. I do want there to be a decent amount of wire. Then I'm going to coat the end, put some glue like in the hole using a toothpick, and then I'm going to heat up the wire, shove it in, and hopefully that will hold in place. I'm probably going to need to do that off camera because I have to hold her between my legs to kind of like get everything in place here.
This was a very delicate process. I didn't want to use too much pressure and loosen the glue from the wire, but I also needed to use some force in order to push it onto the bar, and I didn't want to jiggle her other arm too much either.
So I'm going to leave her to dry for a while, but her arm is still going to kind of slide out a little bit, and that's because the post in the middle has kind of shimmied from where it should be. But I really cannot afford to crack this doll open. She will break. This is why I always say, like, swapping limbs on dolls and stuff is not really worth it because this is pretty severe damage, and like Cara is a very specific, like, deep red chocolate skin tone. It's beautiful, like she's got a beautiful skin tone, but this isn't easy to match, especially using more modern bodies. And also, like, this is special because it has the ballerina arms, so there was no loss in trying to fix this body really. On other types of dolls, you know, if they're more standard, it's probably too risky. So it's not going to be perfect, but this is the safest way I can fix her right now, and if I think of something better later. So we have Cara. She has been sitting for a little while drying, and I've dressed her back up. So she's always been a little loosey-goosey, but you can see here that her arm is fine. It does like wiggle out a little bit, but it's not going to pop out. And her arms were always like swingy, as are her legs. That's kind of just how she is. And I'm going to put this jacket on that goes with this fashion pack. But I thought I would show you her arm up close. So there we go. Cara is all set. all dressed up. I hope you guys enjoyed this not real tutorial. And until next time, love your dolls, love yourself, and love your life.